South Korea wakes up to the dawn of a new administration, and this time under a liberal leadership. President Lee Jae-myung is set to take the oath of office during the inauguration ceremony at the National Assembly this morning. We connect with our Shin Ha-young at the site. Good morning, Ha-young.
Good morning, Tommy. And you're right. After covering the election all night, we are remained with the inauguration ceremony.
You know, Ha-young, South Korea is set to usher in new leadership today. Now, tell us what to expect on this inauguration day.
Well, first of all, indeed, it's a momentous day here in South Korea as the nation inaugurates Lee Jae-myung as its new president to lead the country for the next 5 years. And I'm here at the National Assembly, where the presidential inauguration is set to take place in about 20 minutes. And more specifically, the event will be held in Rotunda Hall, located in the main building, the one you can see behind me. And this place was bustling with preparation earlier this morning, but now everything is set and all that remains is for the ceremony to begin. And as you mentioned, it will be a small-scale ceremony following a snap election triggered by the impeachment of the former president. And he also mentioned during the campaign that it's better to keep the inauguration simple. So instead, he plans to hold an appointment ceremony on July 17 alongside the Constitutional Day commemoration.
So, Ha-young, we're learning it's going to be much simpler and compact. What would a scaled-back ceremony look like then?
Well, first of all, despite the small scaled-down ceremony, many people have already gathered to watch the historic moment. And for those who want to watch the inauguration up close without an invitation, 2 large screens have been set up for here up on the front lawn open to the public. And we are expecting it to last around 30 minutes, so short and to the point. And it starts at 11 a.m. local time with some 300 attendees, including representatives of political parties and members of the cabinet in attendance. And as I said, there will be no elaborate ceremony, no armed services musical parade, or any celebratory performances. And after taking the oath of office, he is expected to present his vision and outline key policy directions for his new administration. And since announcing his candidacy, he has constantly emphasized national unity throughout his campaign, even during his victory speech earlier today. So that's something to watch for as one of the key messages in his speech, especially in light of the recent political turmoil. Tommy?
Indeed, Ha-young, thank you for that report. Of course, we'll come back to you after the ceremony. And as of 6:21 a.m. on today, all president powers have been handed over to President Lee Jae-myung, which also means the Yongsan presidential office will be his new office for the next 5 years. Our correspondent Oh Seung is at the presidential office in Yongsan. Hello there, Seung.
Good morning, Tammy.
So, Seung, what kind of preparations have been made to receive the new president?
Right, well, after a long period of vacancy, weeks and months of vacancy, the Yongsan presidential office awaits its new occupant. And as of early this morning, the blue flag bearing the presidential phoenix was back up proudly outside the building. And while President Lee did initially float plans to relocate the presidential office back to the presidential palace of Cheongwade, for now he will have no choice but to work from the current setup. Ahead of his arrival, the presidential office has completed inspections of the internal facilities, including secure communication networks and the situation room, and it's also stripped all traces of the former Yoon Suk-yeol administration, such as banners and slogans, with key secretaries also formally dismissed as of midnight. Figuratively handing over the keys to the top office, the chief of the General Affairs Office will deliver documents prepared by previous secretaries and guide Lee and his officials through the presidential complex once they arrive.
Seung, his inauguration ceremony is yet to begin, but still, President Lee has already begun his official duties, correct?
You're right, Tammy. So as of 6:21 a.m., when he was declared the elected president by the National Election Commission, President Lee also became the nation's commander-in-chief, and he received his first briefing from the Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Admiral Kim Myung-soo, who told him that there is no problem with the North Korea situation at the moment in terms of Korea's readiness posture. According to the presidential office, Kim briefed the president on such matters, and he reportedly asked the chairman to closely monitor North Korea's movements and maintain a watertight state of preparedness based on the South Korea-US combined defense posture. He also commended the military on its generally passive response to impeach President Yoon Suk-yeol's martial law last year, commending their loyalty to the nation and the people.
Well, Soo-young, he has already won the election intended to fill the vacuum left by former President Yoon Suk-yeol and his, impeachment and martial law order, which means President Lee Jae-myung begins right away without a transition team. Then how will he form his administration within a matter of hours?
Well, we're expecting him to make some key appointments, senior level appointments, as early as today. And positions, nominees for the Prime Minister and Cabinet Ministers, that's going to take a little while because they need parliamentary approval. But senior aides who work directly with the President don't need a vetting process, so they can very much start right away. President Lee is expected to name his Prime Minister, Chief of Staff and Senior Secretaries, along with perhaps a National Security Advisor as early as today. And these would be key figures in coordinating economic policy and handling Korea's diplomacy. So let's see what's announced on day one of the new government, and of course I'll keep you posted.
Thank you, Soo-young. That was our presidential correspondent, Oh Soo-young, live from Yongsan presidential office. So excitement and hopes are high as South Korea gets a new government after a month of a presidential leadership vacuum. We are now minutes away from the inauguration ceremony. And today I'm joined by Professor Shin Se-dun. Good morning, Professor Shin.
Good morning.
And also Professor Christophe Goreng. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
So I'd like to start with you, Professor Goreng. We've come a long way, right? How exciting is today?
Well, it's very exciting, and first, at least from my point of view, it's a huge relief because, we've gone a long way to get there. This is after 6 months of political turmoil. It is after a martial law attempt, a democracy saved by its very own citizens. It is after a very violent, a long campaign. And now there is hope that things will get back to normal. All of this, in my opinion, shows that despite everything that Korean democracy has been going through, it is solid. So that's exciting. And if I may add, it is also reassuring.
I see. Reassurance and excitement. Professor Shin, as a fellow South Korean, I'm sure we can all agree South Korean people persevered the past 6 months, right, since December martial law order. Finally, a new leader to come.
Oh yeah. Korea has been suffering from political turmoil at least for 6 months after martial law and the impeachment process. But I have to mention that Korean society has been suffering a long time of economic turmoil that the ruling government, then ruling government, tried to solve it, but it was incapable of solving that. So I think anticipation is very high and expectation is very high, especially for the new president, because people believe that the new president is capable of solving all the economic problems. And that's why, today at the inauguration day, most of the people are pretty highly anticipate and highly expecting for the changing of economic situation in Korea under the new president.
Definitely high anticipation and high expectations from the new liberal government. We are now seeing live footages of the National Assembly where the inauguration ceremony is taking place. It looks like President Lee Jae-myung has just arrived to make his appearance. We see that now, Professor Goreng, this is quite an unprecedented, scenario that the inauguration ceremony is taking place just a day after the election day.
Well, the world world is watching, actually. It's actually the second time as President Moon Jae-in was sworn the day after he was elected, and in similar circumstances, because after some impeachment process. The difference is that this time, this impeachment took place after a martial law attempt. So I think there was no other option. First, because the Korean constitution says so, but also because now this nonsense, this turmoil has been lasted for too long. It was important to show that things are back to normal. And the choice of a more modest ceremony, I think, is not inaccurate at all, because it is time for normalcy. It is no time for being bombastic either.
Right. Well, again, we are seeing live footages of the National Assembly where the 21st President of South Korea, Lee Jae-myung, is entering the National Assembly to attend the inauguration ceremony. Professor Shin, we are just about less than 10 minutes away from the ceremony. We are seeing him and the First Lady. They seem quite excited, don't they?
Oh, yeah. They look pretty happy, and they look pretty confident. And I think the President and the First Lady really realize how much the people, Korean people, are putting their hope and their anticipation into them. So just looking, very happy, but inside of themselves, they feel pretty heavy burdens, how to solve economic problems, social problems, political problems. I think inside of their minds, I think they feel pretty heavy.
All presidents around the world have little time to bask the victories, Only they're happy only on the election day, and so much to go to resolve, a lot on their shoulders.
Right, exactly.
Well, Professor Goreng, now my colleague Shin Ha-young reported earlier that this ceremony is much scaled down in terms of size and the number of attendees. Why do you think it's so scaled down?
The first reason, I think, is to contrast with the last inauguration ceremony that opened the term of President Yoon, that is 3 years ago. He had picked a very spectacular ceremony with about 40,000 guests, so after the American format. And I think because Lee Jae-myung has been often criticized and even demonized for being a strong man, a strong leader, he decided to look modest. Because after all, these are times for national unity, and so the last thing to do would be to humiliate the other party.
This is one of his official engagements as the new leader, so he might want to take advantage of this, grand event to, make that first impression be modest. And Professor Shin, now we have to talk about those people attending the ceremony. A list of people, only a list of people are able to attend the ceremony. Who are those people?
I think mostly congressmen, congresswomen, and some of the politically very important persons, and as well as the leaders of the government. The problem is, they didn't have time, because the president has to take the oath of power in the position right away. So that's why, we are in a hurry. So that's why we could not invite as much people to the ceremony. I heard that the government is planning to have rather formula inauguration ceremony in July. So I think that is going to be the real inauguration ceremony. I've attended a couple of, the inauguration ceremonies a couple of times, and the participation number was tens of thousands of people, right? And they have to screen all of the participants, and so it's going to be pretty lengthy. But I think this government, President Lee Jae-myung's government, even in the July inauguration ceremony, the size will be much smaller, because the people. The size doesn't mean very much, because we've experienced the number of, inauguration ceremonies as grand as possible. But I think the new government, to show that this government is different from the previous ones, I think they want to maintain as little as possible, and at the same time, to have kind of a celebratory, kind of ceremony.
Right. It looks like you're on the same page as Professor Goreng when it comes to the size of this inauguration ceremony. But Professor Goreng, this inauguration ceremony is one of those occasions, though, we see unprecedented, security, the high levels of security, right?
Because, as Professor Shin mentioned, there are time constraints to organize this ceremony, but there are also security constraints. We should not forget that Lee Jae-myung was stabbed almost to death not even 2 years ago. Many of his campaign speeches, he delivered them behind a protective glass. So unfortunately, the level of polarization in Korean society, the conspiracy theories that are all around the internet, we have to be careful.
Definitely.
We have to be careful, and frankly, if a more formal ceremony is to be held in July, it's only in a month. It isn't that far away. I think it's very reasonable in terms of planning.
Well, high security, regardless of the size of the grand ceremony, and also the upcoming ceremony in July. That's already next month.
That's next month already.
Well, Professor Shin, I do have to point out that how the presidential security team, showed off their training sessions before the inauguration. That's also something notable, right?
Yeah, I on my way to the studio, I passed by the presidential office. And I've seen a number of, the good-bodied men with the black sunglasses. It seems, all new men, because I've been to the presidential, office previous, number of times, and all the members are changed, of course, and they look very strong, very, talented, and I think the presidential office wants to show the people the president is protected in perfect security. That's why I think they showed, the practices and exercise program. So I think the people, Korean people, should not be worrying about, the safety and security of the president. And that, I think, is a good move, on the part of the presidential office to show and to kind of make sure for the people that president himself is pretty safe and secure.
Well, Professor Shin, we are just about 2.5 minutes away from the inauguration ceremony. And if I'm not wrong, you've been to one of those inauguration ceremonies in the past,
couple of
right?
times, yeah.
2 minutes before the ceremony, what's the atmosphere like there?
Well, when I participated in the past, it was tens of thousands of people.
Wow.
And it was May and pretty hot outside. And there was a rainbow,
right.
previous
It was
time.
outdoor.
Yeah, outdoor, right. So this is pretty compact indoor ceremony. I think the mood is much heavier this time in inside compared to the outdoor kind of a celebration kind of mood,
right.
Back in 2022. So I am carefully listening to what the president will be saying in his inauguration speech.
Right.
I think that is most important as far as an economist.
That will be the highlight of this event
Right.
today. Professor Goreng, what do you think he's expected to speak?
Oh, he's going to discuss national unity,
Of
that's
course.
for sure. Economic recovery, because it's needed. And probably he's about to draw a few perspectives about,
Right.
about his upcoming term.
And now we are seeing President Lee Jae-myung is walking into the venue for the inauguration ceremony. Joining him is the First Lady. This is their official public appearance, isn't it, Professor Chen?
Right, yeah. And I'm grateful that, First Lady is a graduate of the school that I have been teaching at.
Oh, yeah.
It's a pretty good...
A proud moment for you.
Oh, yeah, it's a proud moment.
Well, we are seeing the the new president Lee Jae-myung and his first lady shaking hands and really, enjoying the first, triumph day before he really gets down to work. Professor Goreng, I'm sure he has a lot to work on. You just mentioned national unity, rebooting South Korea's economy, and also, stabilizing South Korea's foreign policy. But what do you think will be his top priority out of all?
Oh, even on his campaign posters, he kept emphasizing the necessity to get back to normalcy, to get back to what makes the essence of the Republic of Korea. It was even his slogan, his campaign slogan, and now really the Republic of Korea. So now he will need to look as presidential as possible, because the problem is that this political turmoil happened at the worst possible time. That is when President Trump's tariffs have been hitting so hard on the Korean economy, when the Korean economy was lacking proper leadership. So now the problem is to restore normalcy, to restore guidance, and eventually to move on.
Right. Well, it looks like the ceremony is about to begin. Professor Shin, this is when he really, shows off his confidence as the new president and, being congratulated just for now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The most important moment of the ceremony is getting the declaration of the election committee that he is to be declared as the president of the country. And as I said, we are expecting what is going to be his inauguration speech, because that is almost kind of the principle is that he wants to rule the government, he wants to govern the country. So I think 50 million people now are looking what he's going to say in his inauguration speech.
Right. President Lee Jae-myung and the First Lady vowing to the people attending the inauguration ceremony. Now, it looks like the inauguration ceremony for the 21st President of South Korea is about to begin. He is also still shaking hands and being greeted, Professor Shin.
Yeah, one of the person is the Congress, and the other person left to him is the Supreme Court justices.
Right.
And all the important figures in the government. And now he's about to take the seats, and we're looking the process with the hope, with anticipation, and he will be pretty proud on the one hand, and also he will be feeling the pretty responsibility.
Right. We'll come back after the inauguration ceremony.
We will begin the national ceremony. Everyone, please rise and face the national flag on the stage. Salute to the flag. I pledge in front of the proud 태극기 allegiance to the Republic of Korea for the eternal glory of the country, liberty, and justice. At ease. Next, we will sing the national anthem of Korea. Please join in singing the first verse, accompanied by the Republic of Korea Army Symphony Orchestra, led by military vocalists. We will now observe a moment of silence in honor of the patriotic forebearers and fallen heroes. Moment of silent tribute. Silence ends. Distinguished guests, please remain standing. The 21st President will take the oath of office in accordance with the Constitution of the Republic of Korea. I do solemnly swear before the people that I will faithfully execute the duties of the President by observing the Constitution, defending the state, pursuing the peaceful unification of the homeland, promoting the freedom and welfare of the people, and endeavoring to develop national culture. June 4th, 2025, President Lee Jae-myung. The President will now deliver an address to the people. Distinguished guests, you are asked to be seated. Before I speak, as I entered the venue, I did not have a chance to shake your hands, the opposition leaders. I hope there's no misunderstanding. Sorry about that. Honorable and beloved fellow Koreans, your choices, the choice you made is myself, Lee Jae-myung, the 21st President of the Republic of Korea. I stand here with very heavy heart and such a gratitude, very in-depth gratitude. 52 million Korean people's hopes, and I will bear them in my heart. And with that, from today onwards, as the 21st President of the Republic of Korea, I will make the Republic of Korea real democratic democracy, democratic Republic of Korea. The future is waving to us. The livelihoods are on the verge of the brink, and it is now time for us to make a happy future. The security and peace that has fallen to be just the means of confrontation, the fallen economic status, and the democracy that had been destroyed by tanks. It's now for us to restore that. The confrontation and hatred should be put in the past, and now we have to go forward towards an era of people's happiness and to open up that era in earnest. As the novelist Han Gang said, the past helped the present, and the dead help the present people to live. Now, it is our turn to have faith and to have a future. And it is the command of the people that we have to make a new world and a peaceful and a happy future. And I will respond to that command of the people. This presidential election, whoever you rooted for, it is the big unification and unity that has to be the command and the mission of the president, and I will become that president. The Republic of Korea, today we are making history. We were liberated by colonization, and we are the only country that succeeded in industrialization and democratization. And we became the number 10 among 10 powerhouses around the world, and we have the K culture that is leading the culture worldwide. This proud Republic of Korea now had oppressed the military coup of the leader of this nation. And this great journey of the Republic of Korea and this great capabilities of our people are seen throughout the world by the people around the citizens. The K democracy, the revolution of light, is a hope, and it is a best practice for the people around the world who yearn for democracy. Beloved fellow Koreans, we are at a watershed of a great transformation. The order of the past, we're leaving it behind, and we are in the midst of a great transformation, an unprecedented super scientific society and a very fast-paced, and this competition is underway, and climate change is threatening the existence of people. And we are having a lot of oppression because of the international order, and it is threatening the existence of our people. So we should not be a follower, but we should be taking the lead so that we can be the leader to enjoy the infinite opportunity. However, at this very important point, we are here thinking about our livelihoods, the democracy and diplomacy. All such capabilities are at a polycrisis at the moment. And the present and future of the Republic of Korea is under threat. And the people's difficulties should be restored, and the democracy and peace should be restored, and we have to make right the order that had been collapsed. And that requires our threat, our tears that we're not even able to fathom. However, like the rose of June that finds its way to bloom, we will, and we found the direction forward. We, whatever difficulties and predicaments that we may face, we are going to go forward and in the future-oriented way. I will first look at the economic difficulties and try to restore the economic resilience. And with the national finances, that will be the priming water for the economic revivability. And we are going to become a pragmatic administration. Unity is an index of capability, and if you are incapable, it will divide the people. It will divide the people. The people who are incompetent, they drew line between people and sow hatred in one another. I will become the president of unity. The people's unity will become the driving force to recover this crisis. Livelihood, economy, security, peace, democracy, all these elements that had been collapsing will recover, and we will make a society that grows. The weapons that were entrusted to the people were used for a martial law decree. That should never recur again, and I will take accountability and will make sure that it does not occur ever again. Coexistence and unity are the values, and based on that, we are restoring the communication, and we are going to revive the politics of cooperation and communication. The old ideology of the past should be now in the museums. Now we are we're no longer going to have an issue of progressive faction or conservative factions. We only have the issues of the Republic of Korea. The policies of Park Chung-hee, policies of Kim Dae-jung, if they are necessary and they are capable, we are going to utilize them. We are going to be a pragmatic administration, controlling not a government that controls, but a government that supports and commends. And we will guarantee a proactive companies' activities, so the regulations would be negative regulations, and why I'm going to make a circumstances where we can freely start up companies, and the government will support them heavily. And on the other hand, the safety and the lives of the people, the rights of the workers, and any unjust oppressive actions of the vulnerabilities, or any actions that meddles in the market order will not be tolerated. All people, the basic conditions should be guaranteed. And with the safety net that is very thick, with that we can have innovative growth. And it is the individuals as well as the country to grow, and that is when we can share. And the global economic dynamics will be utilized as an opportunity for us to leap forward. Based on strong Korea-US alliance, we are going to base that as a fundamental, and in a pragmatic approach, we are going to look at our ties with our neighboring countries. The diplomacy will be widened and expanded, and our national status will be elevated so that we can expand our Republic of Korea status. Respectful Koreans, the great Koreans and the Revolution of Lights put an end to the insurrection, and it is commanding to make a new Republic of Korea. And this hopeful Republic of Korea is the command, the grave command of the people, and I will certainly uphold this command of the people. First of all, the people, I am going to make a nation where the people are the owners. We are the Democratic Republic, and the sovereignty lies with the people. Wherever it is, whenever it is, I am going to be in communication with the people so that their voices can be reflected to the Republic of Korea. At the Plaza of Light, we have talked about the social reform tasks, and they will be pursued diligently. And we are going to make a country that continues to grow. This exacerbated polarization, the vicious cycle, we are not going to sit idly by just looking at this vicious cycle. Because we are having less opportunities, we are not in a competition, but we are just hating each other, and we are in confrontation of each other. And we are in a dire situation where we are at a war. And if you fail in this competition, it is just death that awaits you. And that is why we have such extreme actions and extreme thoughts. And with a fair society, we are going to make a world where we can fairly compete. Even in the past, our parents' generation, even though they were poor, they really devoted themselves in educating their children. And with the government in the lead, we are going to invest in such support of the people, and we are going to have a very full-fledged investment to AI and other industries so that we can be a stronghold in such industries. And together, in line with the transition of the world, we are going to stay in tandem with that. And like RE100 and other climate-related policies, together with the companies, we are going to make a country where we can have renewable energies and have renewable energies shipped to other places using the expressways so that all can coexist. And I am going to make a country where we can all coexist. And since we are a resource-scarce country, we had an imbalance growth policy, and that was a compressive growth that we had achieved. However, from now on, such strategy of imbalance growth has its limitations, and it is now hindering further growth. So for continuous growth from now on, we have to change such policy. We have to have a great transformation of the policy. Balanced growth and fair growth. We have to walk into a society of fairness. And we have to go beyond a metropolitan-focused growth, but we have to have a balanced growth of the country. And any privileges would be eliminated, but we'll make a society where people compete fair. And the consistent growth only lies when we can share our opportunities and our achievements. And the respect for the labor and the growth of the company can coexist. Fourth, we are going to be a culture powerhouse. I only yearn for the high level of culture, and this is what Baekbom Kim-gu said, and that is realized at the moment. From K-pop, K-movie, K-drama, K-beauty, and to K-food, we are seeing a situation where the K-culture is loved by so many people around the world. Culture is the international competitiveness, and the Korean culture, its competitiveness will be resulting in more job creation, and the Korean cultural industry will be enlarged, and with a very active support, we are going to be a top 5 global soft power in terms of culture. Fifth, a safe and peaceful country will be made. Culture, safety is the prerequisite of the happiness of the people. Safety is the staple of the people, and peace is something very necessary. We have seen so many big accidents, societal big accidents like Itaewon crush accident and Osong accident. Such accidents will never occur again, and I will indeed make a country that is safe. The division has been cured, will be cured, and will make a society of prosperity. However, the cost is high for prosperity. It is better than war. It is better to win without any war, and it is the security is that you don't even need to have a war. The defense cost is 2 times of the GDP, and we have a very strong deterrence laid on the foundation of alliance with the U.S., and we have very strong deterrence against North Korean nuclear threat. And with that, we are going to seek ways to coexist with North Korea. And the dignity of the military, because of the military coup that had been faltered, will be restored, and such tragedy will never be experienced by the people ever again. Beloved citizens, we had so many crisis, and even though I could stand up on my feet again thanks to your support, and now the mission that you have entrusted to me, I will become a president of the people. And the Korean people, when we became one, we were strong and we were able to overcome any predicaments and difficulties. During the Japanese colonial era, we were the people who made the interim government, and amidst such difficulties, we achieved the industrialization that surprised the people around the world. We had achieved the democracy, and we had regained people's sovereignty with a bloodless revolution 3 times. With such capacities and capabilities of our people, we have nothing to fear. With such high level of people's grit and people's activities, we can become a country where we can set the best practices of the world, and we can be a standard of the world. Honorable citizens, recovery, growth, all of these are there for the happiness of the people. All the nation's capabilities should be used only for the people, and that is a real democratic republic. Going beyond small differences, we will make a nation where people are happy and where people can live together. Let us walk down that path together. Using the power of the nation, the insurrection had been dawned upon. However, it was our people who were at the center to overcome such insurrection. And as a very devoted worker of such people, and as a person commissioned with your command, the responsibility of the 21st President of the Republic of Korea, I will faithfully carry that responsibility. Thank you. Please give another big round of applause to the President. This concludes the inaugural oath ceremony of the 21st President of the Republic of Korea. The President and the First Lady will now exit. Please send them off with a warm round of applause.
So there, we just watched the inauguration ceremony of the 21st President of South Korea, Lee Jae-myung. Professor Shin, how was the inauguration ceremony to you?
Well, it's compact, full of pledges. Compared to the previous ceremony, there was singing and the performances. We all reduced down to the simple core of inauguration speech, and I was pretty moved by the contents, even though there are so many contents in the inaugural speech. But it struck me that he emphasized the pragmatic policy, and he also emphasized the unity, as long as the technology and ideological. But it is interesting that he wanted to put ideology into the museum, and he wanted to become a pragmatic president, and people are pretty hopeful about his emphasis.
Not as eventful, but maybe the pledges are realizable, and actually become tangible to South Korean people.
Right, and it requires a unity of the people,
You know, that's something that Professor Goreng, President Yi couldn't stress enough. A national unity, right, throughout the entire speech.
Even before the speech, because before he started to give his speech, he actually apologized for not having been able to shake hands with the opposition leaders.
You know, he did make sure to note that.
No, and even in his speech, as Professor Shin mentioned, something that struck me is that he mentioned Park Chung-hee and Kim Dae-jung in the same sentence. In the same sentence, and as possible sources of inspiration for future policies. And later on, a later part of his speech devoted to culture, that's only the third person he mentioned in his speech. It was Kim Koo. So again, a figure of national unity. So all of this, I think, is extremely interesting. And of course, the ceremony here is very compact and everything, but it's also very cheerful. If you compare to inaugurations the way we know them in America or in Europe, of course, all of this it's always a very heavy moment, emotionally speaking.
Calmer.
Yes, but it's calmer, but people are smiling, people are shaking hands. For me, what I get from all of this is a feeling of relief.
Relief.
We got there, the crisis is over. So that's, I think, a very nice day for Korean democracy.
You know, this is a historic day because South Korea has finally the president to power back in the presidential office after 6 months of political instability and drama that we certainly didn't need to go through. Professor Shin, now he is still shaking hands with all the congressmen at the ceremony. Now, he'll get to work immediately, right?
Oh, yeah. I think it started from 14 minutes after 6 a.m.
Right.
As soon as he talked with the commander-in-chief. I think we are expecting, as he pledged in his campaign, that he's going to form an economic emergency task force.
Right.
And I think sooner or later, within a few days, I think he's going to announce the contents of the economic emergency task force. And in that, I think it includes some kind of supplementary budgets at the size of probably 30 trillion.
32 trillion.
Yeah, and also he wants to emphasize as he mentioned a number of times in his inaugural speech, he emphasized that fair growth and fair competition, and he emphasized the coexistence. We all know that the Korean society is kind of paralyzed because of the polarization in all aspects, right? So I'm pretty anticipating what's going to be included in the economic emergency task force plans, and he's going to announce it sooner or later.
That's certainly a thing we can look forward to in the coming days or even weeks. Now, it is official. President Lee Jae-myung will take on the South Korean leadership for the next 5 years as he is now officially sworn in. We connect back with our Shin Ha-young at the ceremony. Ha-young, it was definitely not as grand as other inauguration ceremonies in the past, right?
That's right, Tammy. It was relatively short and sweet, and it took about 30 minutes, including Lee's inaugural speech. And unlike the past presidential inauguration, which were grand ceremonies on the National Assembly front lawn, this one was kept simple with the oath of office taken inside the main hall, just like in 2017 when the president took office following a step election at the moment. And there was no elaborate ceremony, no armed service, a musical parade, and a total of 300 guests were invited to the ceremony, and in comparison, around 41,000 people attended the 20th presidential inauguration.
You know, Ha-young, small, but the 30-minute long speech included, a list of pledges from the happiness and well-being of the South Korean people, national unity, of course, and revitalizing the South Korean economy. Ha-young, what were your key takeaways from the speech?
Well, it was a 20-minute long speech in which he laid out his vision for the next 5 years. And first thing I'd like to mention is about the emphasis on the achieving the national unity. He said that no matter who you supported in this election, he'll be a president for everyone, serving and bringing all people together in the spirit of unity. And he said there's no issue that only matters to certain political affiliation, but instead across the all political affiliation. And this message comes against the backdrop of political turmoil following the declaration of martial law and the impeachment of the former president. And I've covered Lee Jae-myung throughout the entire presidential campaign from the day he announced his candidacy to the end of the 22 official campaign period, which took me to all over the country. And as he traveled across the country, he repeatedly emphasized two main goals: bringing the country together and putting an end to what he describes as an insurrection. So DP has been calling Yoon's briefing position of martial law as an act of insurrection that undermined the constitutional order. And as we saw in his speech today, those messages remained front and center.
You know, Hayoung, we just watched President Lee Jae-myung's inauguration ceremony at the National Assembly. Now, we are seeing footages of President Lee Jae-myung and the First Lady, having wrapped up the inauguration ceremony and, moving on with the first official day in the office, presidential office. Now, sticking with Lee's inaugural speech, Hayoung, he did mention about to broaden diplomatic relations with the neighboring countries to heighten South Korea's national status, right?
You're right, Tammy. Well, he said that if he leads a change instead of falling behind, he said that our country can turn into endless opportunities. But he also said that he'll expand the diplomacy and boost South Korea's global standing to grow our economy. And this kind of reminded me of his message he's been saying throughout his campaign, emphasizing so-called pragmatic diplomacy centered on the national's interests. And regarding the Korean Peninsula, he also said that he will work for a future of peace and prosperity. And no matter the cost, peace is better than war. And he also emphasized that it's better to win without fighting, and the best security is peace where fighting isn't needed. So in terms of this kind of message, we can kind of get a hint from his next policy regarding the Korean Peninsula. And we also got a sneak peek at his economic policy direction during today's speech as well. He said that he would focus on reviving the economy, and also he said that the emergency economic task force will start right away. And he also pledged to also use public funds to kickstart a positive economic cycle. And in fact, for the past few weeks, he has been emphasizing reviving the economy and people's livelihood as one of the top priority that he's gonna take in charge when he gets elected. So that kind of message was also included in today's speech. And he also outlined his plan to invest in nation's new growth industries such as AI and semiconductor. And also, one of the things that I'd like to mention was the developed regional growth, which he has been also emphasizing throughout the campaign. And he also said today that developed regional growth is the key factor to South Korea in order to get more growth and development in the future. And another key message was his plan about boosting K-culture industry, noting that culture is now the economy and it has become a key part of international competitiveness.
Well, Hayoung, he made sure to prioritize the livelihood of the South Korean people and their happiness and well-being. That is why he is taking his time to meet with workers at the National Assembly, where the inauguration ceremony just took place. We are seeing live footages of President Lee Jae-myung and the First Lady, mingling with the workers at the National Assembly. Now, Hayoung, all eyes are on President Lee's very first day in office. The question is, what lies ahead for him for the rest of the day?
Well, following the ceremony, he is expected to meet with National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik and party leaders, so something to watch closely amid the ongoing political standoff. And also, as mentioned before, the the ceremony, he held a scaled-down inauguration and plans to hold an appointment ceremony on July 17 alongside the Constitution Day commemoration. So crowds have gathered to witness this historic moment, and Lee Jae-myung taking office after winning the snap presidential election with 49.42% of the vote. So having consistently emphasized national unity, now all eyes are on how Lee Jae-myung will turn those words into action. Tommy?
All right, Hayoung, thank you for connecting with us. That was our Shin Ha-young live from the National Assembly where the 21st inauguration ceremony just took place. Again, back to you in the studio with Professor Shin Se-do and Professor Christoph Goreng. Now, we are seeing President Lee Jae-myung and the First Lady walking down the aisle at the National Assembly. Now, there they go, President Shin.
Oh yeah, I think
Shin, sorry.
Yeah. I remember about when the first American kind of astronaut stepped on the moon, and he said it's a small steps for the man, but the great giant step for the nation. I think it's a pretty small steps within the National Assembly, but it's going to be a giant step. For Korean economy, because we have so many problems, so many turmoils we have been passed through. So I think it's going to be a kind of a celebration day today, but right after now, I think it's going to be pretty tough for the president and for the people around the president, and 52 million people will support his success for the betterment of the nation.
Joyful moments for now, but I'm sure he has a lot on his shoulders from now on for the next 5 years. Professor Goreng, now he is still taking his time to meet with workers and congressmen at the National Assembly. I'm sure there's a reason why he's spending so much time here.
Well, first, because he used to be a worker himself, which is something that needs to be reminded, because it has become relatively seldom today among world leaders. And as he claimed in his speech, he claimed he wanted to make the people the true owners of the Republic. So this goes with words, and this also goes with symbols, with shaking hands, and also with making his administration as transparent as possible. When he said that he wanted to hold armed forces accountable, it was obviously a transparent allusion to the attempted martial law. So here, all of this is about symbols. But on the other hand, what I want to emphasize is that if you compare with short inauguration speeches in America, a lot was said today in terms of foreign policy, in terms of economic policy, in terms of cultural policies. The way I see it, it is almost an agenda of policies to fulfill within the next 5 years. So it is actually a very, very interesting speech he gave, with a lot of hints about future policies.
It could be an agenda, what we can expect or look forward to for the next 5 years. He did touch upon every single aspect, he could do as the leader, from economy, foreign policy, revitalizing people's livelihoods. And also he did mention the Korean Peninsula issues, right?
Yeah, and it is very interesting because he dodged this Korean Peninsula issue during his campaign. It is an issue he avoided as much as he could. And you see, when as a president you claim to unite your people, one method may be to wait and see. But apparently President Lee Jae-myung is taking the less traveled road. I found his speech to be quite audacious because he hinted at plenty of very concrete policies. So wait and see, but it is actually a very fruitful ceremony we attended, in my opinion.
Professor Goreng, he also mentioned no hatred. Do you think that means no political retaliation? Do you think he meant by that?
Definitely. Definitely. No demonization, because you see, in the very final days of the campaign, his party was called a monster by his opponent Kim Moon-soo. He was called a dictator by many opposition leaders. So, I mean, it is now the president's responsibility to show that he is not to retaliate. If you want to somehow restore normalcy, sometimes you need to forget offenses.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, Professor Shin, what took me by surprise is your mention of 33 trillion Korean won extra budget bill that could be on the way.
Yeah, that's been talking on.
Yeah, in the coming days or weeks. Now, why so much? 33 trillion Korean won, that's a whopping number that we're talking about.
Yeah, 30 trillion seems to be pretty much, but that much, Korean economy has been so poor for the last, I think, couple of years. So many economists count that even 30 trillion won is not enough. And some people are asking about 100 trillion won for pump priming, Korean revitalization. So he mentioned about, pump priming role of the government budget. So I expect that the government is trying to spend trillions, tens of trillions of won to revitalize Korean economy coming down the road, until the end of 2025.
Professor Shin, before we delve deeper into that discussion, we are seeing live footages once again of President Lee Jae-myung and the First Lady officially giving a vow to the South Korean people in front of the main hall, main door to the National Assembly where the inauguration ceremony just took place. Now, that should be the end of it, right?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think that is the end in the National Assembly. And I think they will be moving to probably Yongsan for the president's office. And then real kind of office work starts for the president. And we're pretty excited to what is coming after, his real taking office of the president presidency of Korea.
Right, the 21st inauguration ceremony of South Korea took place rather in a small scale, indoor this time. Professor Goreng, now you mentioned that it's much a symbolic move that he tried to make that first impression, strategically, right?
Yes, definitely. And I think to get back to what Professor Shin was saying, I even think that, there have been talks about this 30 billion. This 30 billion package. And I may be wrong, but I don't think events will prove me wrong. Actually, in his speech, he did give some hints about where the Korean economy is to invest. He mentioned a lot of elements about AI, climate change, technology. So that's one thing. Another thing is that he devoted at least 3 minutes, I timed at my watch, to establishing Korea as a world cultural leader. So I think we will see a huge rise in public investment in Korea. And something I want to emphasize is that Korea is not as indebted as the US or European countries are. So, of course, 30 billion looks like a lot, but as Professor Shin mentioned, it's necessary. It may not even be sufficient, and Korea can afford it, especially in times of emergency.
Well, Professor Goreng, we've come a long way. We've experienced months of vacuum and presidential leadership. There was acting president, acting president. And, with the presidential runners certifying their loss to President Lee Jae-myung, can we expect a smooth transitional power?
It seems like it. It seems like it because, but even after the impeachment took place, it's very interesting to see that the PPP leaders wouldn't challenge the impeachment. That's a sign of democratic maturity, to be highly praised, in my opinion. Now the transition is to go, I think, quite fast, because President Lee Jae-myung was leading in polls all along the campaign, so he was expecting to become president. And I cannot imagine he would have been elected without plans. So probably I think The real inauguration is to take place in a month, so we can expect to see quite a lot of significant political changes within this month, because we cannot envision him having a second ceremony without anything new to announce.
Well, Professor Shin, 33 Korean trillion extra budget feels it doesn't come to me right away, as one of South Korean citizens. But what about something more realizable and tangible to South Korean people in terms of economic reforms that we can look forward to?
As I said, 30 trillion won seems to be big, but compared to national budget, which is about 670 trillion, it's about 5%, so relatively small. But I think more important, than the size of money is the president has to be successful in motivating the bureaucrats. The motivation on the part of the bureaucrats is critical for the success of the new government. Even with the astronomical money, if the bureaucrats are not modified at all, then the government is not operating. So motivation of the bureaucrats, top and bottom, I think is pretty crucial for the success of the current administration.
Definitely. Now, Professor Shin, if we are talking about reforms in the field of economy, I'm sure a lot of our viewers can relate to this. The 4.5-day work week that President Lee Jae-myung has long pledged. Can we see that coming anytime soon?
Well, we should not expect that's going to come probably next month or next week. It's going to take a long time. We have to agree between the workers and the employers.
Right.
They have to agree upon that, right? It's going to take a long time. And of course, there are some industries and some offices who can afford 4.5 day a week. But most of Korean manufacturers and the lagging industries, they couldn't afford, 4.5 day a week program. So I think the step has to be a gradual step, and taking that kind of a system for the company and industry who could afford them, and then gradually extend to other industries. I think that is the program that President Lee Jae-myung has emphasized in his campaign.
Right, maybe one of the goals that will not happen by overnight, but certainly it needs time and effort to, make that happen.
Mutual agreement.
Mutual agreement.
Yeah, the government should not impose that kind of system to the company.
Definitely.
Right.
Well, now we are looking at the footages of scenes happening at the National Assembly after the inauguration ceremony. It looks like President Lee Jae-myung and the First Lady are having lunch with congressmen as the first official. Now we are speaking. It's around lunchtime in South Korea. That is why they are having that lunch, right?
Yeah.
And they are before having their luncheon as one of the first official engagements of President Lee Jae-myung. It looks like they're delivering a message of overall wrap-up before they go off and enjoy the meal after a long morning, right, Professor Goreng?
Yes, it seems like it. It's very interesting to see that his first actually official task is to have lunch with all party leaders. And even a detail you may have noticed is that even his tie is not blue anymore.
Oh yeah.
He went for a striped tie and purple. And purple, the way I read it, it's blue and red.
Oh yeah, it's a perfect mixture of red and blue.
Yeah. So it's very, very interesting to see that he gave a speech with a direction.
So we are in desperate need of unity. Therefore, the menu for today is bibimbap. We have the ingredients that they stand out alone itself, but then it is all mixed together into one great dish, and that is the characteristics of bibimbap, and therefore the menu. And the ingredients come from all over Korea, from Gyeonggi, Yeongnam, Jeju, Seoul is not there ingredients from Seoul, but the venue is Seoul, so it means that the ingredients of today's menus are from all over the country. And I hope that this serves as a great cornerstone for the Korea to leap forward. Class, regions, everything, all the opinions all together makes a Republic of Korea. And to harmonize such differences will be the driving force of the unity. For the last 6 months, the Korean people were confronted with difficulties and hardships. And now we are really setting a new foot forward to the future. In close cooperation with the National Assembly, we, the governance, will go forward and will overcome many issues that lies ahead together with the National Assembly. And I hope that this luncheon will become a place where we can promise on that. The successful administration of the new government, for that, the National Assembly will do our utmost. Once again, I would like to congratulate the inauguration of the new president. Thank you. Would you want to have a few words? Well, thank you, the Speaker of the National Assembly. Thank you very much for our luncheon today, hosting this luncheon. The people of Korea are going through many different difficulties. The politics should be something that's a means to resolve people's predicaments, and I hope that it will become a means to resolve the predicaments. I will take the lead, and together with Kim Yong-tae, Cheonaram, Mr. Kim Yong-tae, Cheonaram, I will serve you well. I hope to see you more frequently. Communications is very important, and I cannot take everything myself. A concession needs to be made, and we have to make compromises, and with policies that we can see together. With that, I hope that we can make and help the people, their betterment of the people. Not politics of war and battles, but a politics where we recognize each other and have a dialogue and have a healthy competition. I will be in contact frequently, so I hope that you can spare time for me. And without any agenda, I hope that we can have more casual communications. It was a sudden arrangement today, so thank you very much for the short notice, but your time today. I thought first, in the first place, to visit your party offices, but because due to the protocol, it was quite difficult. So thank you very much, the Speaker of the National Assembly, for hosting this luncheon. Thank you. Well, next, Mr. Park Chan-dae, the floor leader of the Democratic Party. Mr. President, I congratulate you sincerely. When I first saw you at the National Cemetery, I called you, I addressed you as President, Mr. President, and you asked me, well, has it changed to Mr. President already? And now we should get used to it more, but what I want to say is that with this luncheon, together with the Speaker of the National Assembly and all the opposition leaders, I think that this is a starting point to make changes in the future. He said he did not wear school uniforms during his school days, and that is why he provided the free meals for the school students. And just like that, because he really felt the need of the insufficient dialogue with opposition parties, and that is why I guess we have arranged today's luncheon. And I think that is really what Lee Jae-myung speaks for himself. I myself, I'm a very personable peaceful person, not a person who fights. But after coming to the National Assembly, I somehow became a person who fights well. So I hope that we have in the bibimbap the raw meat, which has the same sound as happiness in Korean. So I hope that is one of the ingredients. So the National Election Committee had pronounced your elect at 6:21 a.m. today, and I have got the certification of your election. So I hope that with today's bibimbap, do we have raw meat? Yes, I hope. Well, we have 육회, which is raw meat from Gangwon-do Haengsong area. Together with the people, we will harmonize and we will cry with the sad and smile with the happy, and that is the politics that we are going to see in the future. Well, one thing that is a bit regrettable is that I have only 1 week left of my term, so I will be returning to one of the congressmen, but all the opposition leaders here on in this table, I hope that you lead a governance and politics of happiness and with a lot of joy. Thank you very much for the luncheon. Next, the Emergency Committee Leader of People Power Party. First of all, I would like to congratulate your election. National unity and state reform are the grave policies and the initiatives that you would have to make it succeed. And I hope that we can overcome the very deep division, and I hope that it is, and I believe that it is important that you refrain from such words or actions of dividing the different factions. And therefore, from tomorrow, I hope, I am very concerned about tomorrow's passing the bill of the National Assembly. Together with the President and the ruling party, I hope that they use their power to make harmony and to collaborate and cooperate with the opposition party. And if that is realized, the People Power Party will be in full cooperation. And I wish for the success of your administration. Thank you. Next, 조국 Revolution Party, Ms. Kim Sun. President Lee Jae-myung, I congratulate you from the bottom of my heart. Well, I come to the National Assembly today, and now we finally have peace, and I believe that is the sentiment shared by the people. Our party, for the last 1 year, we have chanted, we have said repeatedly that the 3 years was so long, and now looking back, that the 3 years was too long. And as a comrade, I really would like to congratulate President Lee Jae-myung. Here, it is regrettable that we don't have the representative 조국, who would have really enjoyed today's luncheon. At our party, we will support the success of Lee Jae-myung administration, and we will do our utmost in support of your government. And first and foremost, about the insurrection, we would have to have truth findings and hold people who are accountable and do away with the insurrectionist actions and make everything go back to their own places. We are going to do our utmost. And with the opposition parties, with the civic groups, and the hopes of the plaza. Maybe I believe that we can have consultative parties together with such opposition parties and civic groups. So we are going to resolve the insurrection forces and stabilize the livelihoods of the people. Next, Reform Party, Acting Representative Cheonaram. President Lee, I congratulate you on your inauguration. I believe that many people have their hopes high in terms of the reviving the economy and the livelihoods. And at the same time, there are many people who share their concerns as well. Setting aside other issues, it is about the judicial power, especially the Supreme Court justices, I hope that you take a very prudent step in terms of the Supreme Court reform, and I know that you have sufficient acknowledgement of this issue, and I hope that you have that understanding. So I just want to mention that once again. Up until yesterday, you were the candidate of the Democratic Party, but from today onwards, you are the president of the Republic of Korea. And the people who supported us, our party, and our candidate Lee Jun-seok, I hope that you can listen to those voices and will bring them into your policies. And at our party, we will be an appropriate partner that will help and support your governance. And I would also like to thank the floor leader, the speaker, Woo Won-sik, for such luncheon. Next, Progressive Party. Representative Kim Jae-yeon, I'd like to congratulate your inauguration, and I congratulate the inauguration of the new administration. You have reiterated, but you said we are going to live together in coexistence and solidarity, going beyond hatred and confrontation. Until today, we have so many people who were sidelined by the government, and with the new government, I hope that you embrace these people first. And at this point, we still have people who are the socially vulnerable who are trying to make their voices heard. And as you have a very symbolic, you are a symbolic figure that comes from a minor worker, I know that, and I would like to believe that you will be a person who listens to the voices of the sidelined. Thank you. Next, the Representative Yong Hae-in of the Basic Income Party. President Lee Jae-myung, I'd like to congratulate you on your inauguration. And now it feels like we finally are done with December of last year. And as your first schedule as the president, thank you very much for having such luncheon meeting. And the democracy must be restored, and the livelihoods of the people should be restored from now on. And with the National Assembly and the administration, we have to muster our strengths to achieve that. And that will be paying back the people's great votes and their decisions. And I hope that we can walk this path together with the administration and the opposition leaders. And your truth and your genuine will to walk the path with the people that you lived as Seongnam City Mayor. I know that you will relive your faith as a president, and at our party, we are going to muster our strength to support your administration. Thank you. Social Democratic Party of Han Chang-min. President Lee Jae-myung, I sincerely congratulate you, and I know that the people are feeling the same. But I know that you have such a heavy burden on your shoulders because we have a tumultuous road lying ahead of us. The sovereign government, the government where the people are the sovereign, Well, where the people have the sovereign rights, it is very important to have the people at the center, so you have to go beyond any interests of any single party. We have to make this Republic of Korea leap forward and to succeed. And with the people's will of democracy as a shield, you should not surrender to the insurrectionist forces. And I know you would need a lot of courage because we have we're at such difficult times, but please be courageous and have faith in our people, in our party as well, and we as our party will do our utmost in supporting the government for recovering the economy, the livelihood, and putting an end to the insurrectionist forces. Thank you.
There goes President Lee Jae-myung to have lunch with party floor leaders and representatives on the first day of his office. Now, the brand new government and its rebooting of the country's diplomacy will be put at test, especially with its strongest ally with the U.S. How to further nourish Seoul-Washington ties under the Lee Jae-myung administration. We connect with Dr. Patrick Cronin. Hello there.
Hello.
He is the chair for Asia Pacific Security at the Huston Institute. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, the U.S. was quick to welcome the current Lee Jae-myung administration with an emphasis on tight ROK-U.S. alliance. Now, it's only a matter of time before a phone call between President Lee and U.S. President Donald Trump takes place, right?
I would assume by tomorrow, yes.
Well, if that does take place, what do you think the two leaders will discuss in the first phone call?
Well, I remember when President Trump was congratulated by President Yoon, it was about a 10-minute phone call, and that was longer than usual. But even if it's only 5 or 6 minutes, there's plenty of time to set out an agenda and make some common connection between President Lee and President Trump. They're both survivors of assassination attempts. They're both interested in technology and industrialization. They're both interested in diplomacy, trying to ease tensions and actually reach out directly to leaders like Kim Jong-un. So they have a lot of common areas, but they also need some deals to think about. And I think and this is going back to November when President Yoon and President Trump had a successful phone call, they mentioned shipbuilding, which was an unexpected idea of a deal. I hope there's something like that in this sort of short congratulatory call that Lee Jae-myung can mention that's in the interest of what he wants to do with his agenda that matches with what President Trump may want.
Well, they have a lot in common, but also a lot to overcome together. Anxieties over the security alliance with the U.S. are also hanging in the air, namely North Korea being a persistent challenge. How can the Lee and Trump administrations work together against Pyongyang's ever-growing military threats, do you think?
Well, dialogue is very important, and I think both leaders are interested in dialogue directly, personal dialogue, but it's not sufficient. This is Frederick the Great, that diplomacy without arms is like music without instruments. So you're going to have a strong, capable alliance, and Lee Jae-myung has talked repeatedly on the campaign trail in the past about the ironclad alliance, but he also most recently today talked mostly about diplomacy and soft power. He does need to remember that South Korea needs to be strong and ready, just as his very first phone call with the Joint Chiefs of Staff today indicated that he was interested in making sure that the Korean forces were, with the Combined Forces Command, ready. And I think that's the right message to send for strength, and then reach out with diplomacy and figure out ways to ease tensions over time.
I do have to mention, while not stormy, but things have certainly been bumpy between South Korea and the U.S. in recent months, from tariffs to the defense cost-sharing deal. Dr. Cronin, what do you think should President Lee's first step be for his government to take for, healthier Seoul-Washington relations?
Well, I've written a report recently suggesting there are a number of issues, both on the economic and on the security agenda, that could make possible deal making. President Trump likes deals. He likes big round numbers. He likes big shiny projects. So, whether that's artificial intelligence and technology, whether it's something to do with the defense industrial base capacity, there are areas where they can come together. Chips, ships, a lot of areas that are of common interest to the two countries. And I think they need to figure out a couple of deals that they can work on that will allow President Yi to have credibility and leverage with President Trump, who's looking for strong leaders to deal with. So it's very important for them to find those footholds, because there are going to be bumps in the road, even with those deals in the offing.
Trump does like fancy deals, and he's also preoccupied with his, own matters. Just to name a few, the Ukraine war, the Gaza war, now, another spat with Harvard University. But Trump will one day reach out to North Korea, or has already. How can Seoul make sure we are not left out there?
Well, it's very important for South Korea to insist on close coordination with what's happening. President Trump has indicated that he has already communicated with North Korea. It's not clear that North Korea has really sent anything meaningfully back, but I think we should expect there to be some high-level personal communications directly between Kim Jong-un and President Trump. And we're going to need to make sure that Lee Jae-myung is part of that discussion going forward. I'm just finishing up a report we're issuing with the Che Institute and Hudson Institute this month that's going to talk about how President Trump and Kim Jong-un may proceed with their personal high-level diplomacy. And there's a range of views. There's no one set sort of approach, and there's no one timetable, but it's likely to happen this year.
When talking about U.S. relations, we cannot not talk about China. How can the new Lee Jae-myung administration avoid, walking on eggshells with regard to Washington and Beijing, and maintain stable ties with both of them?
One of the messages from Secretary of Defense Hegseth at the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore was essentially a warning to allies that they can't have it both ways. If they're going to have a close security defense alliance with the United States, they're going to have to think about China and not just other issues. And this really does apply to Korea. Even that's the case, remember, the Trump administration is also torn about what is its China policy. Is it the Secretary of Treasury Bessent's trade deals that's about to be made? Or is it the Secretary of Defense's approach about communist China, and we must be ready for the fact that they could have imminent use of force? And the answer is it's both of those things that we have to be ready for. So at least Korea needs to be ready to be a strong ally, even without naming potential countries as threats. And that's more or less the approach of previous, especially liberal governments, where we've always managed to get along and keep the alliance strong despite ideological differences between a conservative American president and a more liberal South Korean president.
The new South Korean government certainly needs a more delicate, mindful, and careful diplomatic approach. Dr. Cronin, thank you so much for connecting with us this afternoon. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Now, after the inauguration ceremony this morning, the President Lee Jae-myung, seems to be headed to the Yongsan presidential office after the luncheon. Now, this is where he will begin his term without a transition committee. We have our presidential office correspondent Oh Soo-young waiting at the top office. Soo-young, what's the atmosphere like there over in Yongsan?
Hi again, Tammy. Yes, the air is buzzing with a sense of excitement as the top office awaits its new occupant. And here in the reporters' room as well, there's a sense of anticipation as our briefing room is open again. It's been unlocked after months of unused during the presidential vacancy. And once President Yi arrives, it's quite expected that he might give a press conference to set out his policy direction from day one and also make key appointments. So it's right here in Yongsan that his administration will take shape. While Yi initially floated plans to relocate the presidential office, for now he's he really has no choice but to work from the current setup. And ahead of his arrival, the presidential office has completed inspections of the internal facilities, including secure communication networks and the Situation Room, and has stripped all traces of the former Yoon Suk-yeol administration, such as banners and slogans, along with key secretaries formally dismissed as of midnight. Now, figuratively handing over the keys to the top office, the Chief of the General Affairs Office will deliver documents prepared by various previous secretaries and guide President Lee and his staff through the presidential complex once they arrive here.
You know, Soo-young, the inauguration ceremony has just wrapped up, but President Lee has already begun his official duties, right?
That's right, Pami. So as of 6:21 a.m., that's the moment that the National Election Commission declared him the elected president. President Lee also became South Korea's commander-in-chief of the military, and he received his first briefing from the Joint Chiefs of Staff Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman, Admiral Kim Myung-soo, who briefed them on South Korea's security situation. He reportedly asked the chairman to closely monitor North Korea's movements and maintain a watertight state of preparedness based on the South Korea-US combined defense posture.
Soo-young, now I do have to mention one more time, Lee won an early election intended to fill the vacuum left by former President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment, which also means he begins right away without a transition team. Now, how will his team administration look like within a matter of hours?
Well, it looks like he's going to make some key appointments today, as he said he would on Monday. And while the Prime Minister, the nominee for Prime Minister and Cabinet Ministers, now that would take a bit of time because they require parliamentary approval. But his top secretary positions, such as the Chief of Staff or his senior secretaries, those people working with him directly, they can be appointed straight away and get to work right away. So he's very likely to appoint them within a day probably. And for now, we're expecting him to name the next Prime Minister, and we're looking at the candidate Kim Min-seok, a four-term lawmaker who's been a key strategist for Lee's presidential campaigns in the past. Also, three-term lawmaker Kang Hoon-sik is expected to be the chief presidential secretary. He's also known as a strategist with relatively neutral factional alignment. As for Lee's chief policy secretary, the head of the DP's policy think tank, Lee Han-joo, is the likely pick, and he's the architect of Lee's universal basic income policy, also alluded to during his speech that we just heard. So figures in national security and foreign policy, they're likely to include former Unification Minister Lee Jong-seok, who's being discussed as the National Security Advisor informally, and former Second Deputy National Security Advisor Kim Yeon-jong for a senior role in foreign affairs and national security, as well as former ambassador to Russia, lawmaker Wi Sung-lak, for a senior diplomatic role. Now, these key figures will very much be part of coordinating economic policy and handling South Korea's diplomacy, really indicating the most pressing issues that await the Lee Jae-myung administration. So let's see what's announced on day one of the new government, and of course I'll be keeping you posted.
Please do. Soo-young, thank you for that report. That was our presidential office correspondent, Oh Soo-young, over in Yongsan. So you are watching Arirang's special coverage on the 21st presidential inauguration ceremony. Now, we have just watched the ceremony being wrapped up, and we sent off President Lee Jae-myung have a luncheon with party floor leaders and representatives. Now, I'm back with Professor Shin Se-don and also Professor Christophe Goreng. Professor Goreng, let's pick up on where we left off. They are having lunch for bibimbap for lunch. Now, that is also quite a symbolic, menu, right?
I think for our foreign audience, it is worth emphasizing that all of this is a very Korean ritual. What Koreans call insa, that is before having a drink, before having lunch, there is a little speech you give to say you're happy to be here, and it is a way to bring people together. And in this case, this ritual was, as you put it, symbolic as two levels. Because first, it's about bringing people together around the table, literally, but with this bibimbap metaphor. This bibimbap metaphor, because bibimbap in Korean literally translates as mixed rice. So about mixing different ingredients from all over the country. It's interesting to see that it was emphasized that not only is the bibimbap about mixing different ingredients, but these ingredients came from all over the country. The meat came from a super conservative region, etc., etc. So what I found to be interesting, long story short, is that at first it was intended to bring people together, but when you listen to the little speeches that the different representatives gave, you could already see political divisions coming back.
The tensions were in the air.
Yes, and I am not sure that for a foreign audience it was transparent, because all of this happened in a very Korean way, very subtly, but you could very clearly listen to some nasty political undertones.
You know, just feel it to the skin. Well, Professor Shin, I'd like to end with you with the one ultimate question. Has South Korea overcome the political drama and is ready to bounce back?
Oh, yeah. Politically speaking, I think political turmoil has been completed with this successful presidential election. Now, next task is economic recuperation or economic bouncing back. That, I think, is the main task of the new president, and there are many challenges. We have to have enough resources. We have to have very careful planning by the government bureaucrats, and also we have to have a devotion of the bureaucrats, and also, I think, most importantly, dedication of the president. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to end in 5-year term. It's ongoing process, and the government, the president has to be dedicated to do his best for the goodness of Korean people and goodness of Korean nation. I think in that respect, I think, this luncheon, together with all politically different parties, I think is meaningful because President wants cooperation, wants, help from other political aspects. I think in that sense, I think this is a pretty ritual and pretty meaningful and symbolic kind of luncheon.
South Korea has officially ushered in to a brand new leadership, this time under liberal. A lot to look forward to, but of course for the better of South Korea and also the South Korean people. Professor Shin Se-don, thank you so much for coming in this afternoon. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And also, Professor Gorang, it was so nice to see you in studio today.
My pleasure too.
Thank you for your insight. Now, that brings an end to our special coverage on South Korea's 21st presidential election and President Lee Jae-myung's inauguration ceremony. This has been Kim Da-mi. Thanks for watching.